If you've ever wanted a watercolor portrait of your home, let me show you my process. So we print the photo off your printer, and then we color the backside with a soft pencil. We're going to make a transfer, and they make paper that's called transfer paper for something like this, but I don't have that on hand, so we're just going to use a pencil, flip it over, and then trace it with a sharp pen of the whole outline of the house. You can include trees, landscaping, or just do the house, whatever you like. And once you're about finished, you can take the paper off and you can see what was transferred with the pencil. And sometimes there's some gaps or missing pieces, so I just added those in with a regular pencil. And then now I'm going to use my Micron pen, which is an archival ink, and it will not fade, at least for a long time. And so now I'm going to trace all those pencil marks with my pen. There are different archival inked pens, so you can choose whichever you like, but this one I did a Micron 08 tip, so there's different tip sizes, and so you can test things out, see what works best for you. This was kind of like in the middle ground. My really thin, fine tip pen wasn't working very well, so I just used this one. And as you can see here, I'm actually creating breaks in my lines because it's a little bit more pleasing to the eye from my experience. For years, I used to do just straight lines, no gaps at all, and perfectly fine, and you can still make a really nice image. But for me, I just realized that the brain likes to connect the dots, and it just creates a little bit more of an elevated look. Now, as we're finishing this drawing up, don't worry if you can't get some minor details in with the pen, because we are going to be adding more details in with the watercolor, such as bricks or any sort of textures that you're like, oh, I want to represent that. We can do that all with watercolor. Now, these are the watercolors I use. It's called Prima watercolor. I got the tropical set, but I love this thing. I take it with me everywhere I go. If I'm traveling, it's easy and they're dry. So when I rehydrate them, then it brings back the pigment. And these are the brushes that I use. I've had these for forever, so they last a long time if you take good care of them. So personally, I like to start by painting the largest areas first, so that means the sky and the grass, and I just get my big brush and I paint straight water onto the paper where the sky is going to be. So watercolor is different from regular acrylic or oil paint is because we don't have white as a pigment. We use water as our white, so to speak, and pigment, the more pigment you add, the deeper saturation, the richer, the darker it'll be, but the more water you add, the lighter it will be. So I'm adding a bit of water to my pigment so that I can get all of the surface area of the sky all in one go, and I don't have to remix paint while it's drying. If I didn't add the water beforehand, you would see a lot more brush marks, which I don't want. I want it to look seamless. So in order to do so, I work pretty quickly so that the water that I applied beforehand doesn't dry by the time I apply my blue watercolor. Now I'm doing the same thing with the green grass. I'm going to get my big brush, wash it with the water, and then come back in with my green pigment that I mixed. Now that I'm done, I'm going to let it dry, and then if I think it's a little light or if I'm not super happy with the color, I can always go back and add another wash over it, which I'm doing right now. Once that dries, I'm going to go in and start on the details of the house. I want to let everything dry because when you hit wet with wet, it starts bleeding into each other. So now because the sky is dry, I can add the roof in without it bleeding into the sky. If you can see up at the top, I have watercolor paper for testing my pigments, and so I can color mix and then test the color onto that watercolor paper just so I know exactly what it looks like, and then I can apply it on to my actual painting, so I'm not always having to go back and edit. But I'm referring to my photo image a lot here and trying to get the right colors of the brick and the roof and all the shadows and colors of the trees and landscaping. I also have two pots for water, one for dirty water and one for clean water. The dirty water I wash my brush with after I'm done using a pigment, or a paint color, and then I use the clean water to mix new colors with. So say I'm using brown and then I want to go and use green. I wash my brush out from the brown and then I start mixing the green with the clean water. Now that I'm adding the bushes, the greenery, and the landscaping, I'm kind of doing a stippling effect with my brush just to add some texture and some details for the leaves that would normally be on bushes. And it's kind of a nice, you can do whatever you want, honestly, here. This is creative freedom, but this is just what I'm doing. And I usually do one layer and then I'll let it dry and then come back and do another layer of like the stippling effect, maybe with a darker hue, just add some dimension. So because it's looking a little bit flat, and then see right there, I'm adding in a darker hue in, but then that light green is still peeking through. So it just adds another dimension. So I kind of felt like I messed this little area up. Like the yellow was starting to just turn into a big blob. So I just let it dry. If you're ever feeling frustrated or something starts to mess up, just like stop what you're doing, let it dry, and then come back to it. I was able to fix it, and you can't even tell that there's any issues here. And I covered it up with some more dark green leaves, and it turned out really nice. So I made a mistake on this door. It's not all brown. It's actually, these designs were actually part of a window. So I can actually go in, and once it's dry, I take my brush with some clean water and I just paint over the area I want to try and erase. And so this is going to take off some of that pigment, and I just wipe my brush every time I do a wash over it. And as you can see, it's lifting some of that brown. So I'm going to try and do this as much as I can without ruining the image or the paint around it. But then once that water dries after I wipe that brown off, I'm going to go back in and add blue. Watercolor is actually pretty forgiving. Even if you make a mistake, you can erase pigment that you've maybe accidentally got on a spot, and you can do the same thing. The house turned out great. This is how it looks. More tutorials, process, and how to actually get paid for something like this is all in my community. Come join us.